Namo Sangaya. Namo Guru Me. Namo Buddhaya. Namo Dharamaya. Namo Sangaya. Namo Guru Me. Namo Buddhaya. Namo Dharamaya. Namo Kanden Aje Gönjen Dorgane Raga Aishosa Onje Chonze Anze Chöye Yamo Gönje Loisa Sedanje Chö 罗罗明觉三界中波来如，
心界头界都头界拉到那样子，我做三界公布中，见那个头位，第一次咱们去3年，公路上就是这么随机3单什么去。
I want to remind every one of ourselves to take a moment and cultivate bodhicitta motivation, or the altruistic motivation seeking complete enlightenment for the benefit of all other sentient beings. And with that kind of at least contrived bodhicitta motivation, we should participate in this Lamrim discourse on the stage of the path to enlightenment by Manjushri Lama Tsongkhapa. Allow me to read about a couple of pages from this Lamrim Chemo, the great treatise on the stages of path, volume number 3 in the English translation, page 319, to give you the blessing of lineage oral transmission followed by explication.
Tani la ma chang ye su ni lo den bra jo la bra do do shi wa de shi ni shi ta wa shi ne be ran shi to ba ni se ne ran shi da je bra do ba no su ni so do su ni so su ni ne to me je wa de ji ji da de je bra jo ke lang jang su ni dong su be de jo jo ra shi to ba ye de jo jiang 人无真的也空着是把米写的这些表的这些没有你的名字别写的都一个没有人无里人无老婆找到呢找到的这边是就也没写的这些表你的名字别写的都我不让给我你的这边写说今天的黑老婆找要让些没有到有没有过呢的呢这 Chikido domo do do Geshe be chebra temba. Dene tongji ngo kele no ngo mo no de la de mo do he mo we de bre me la tse ba ne me lo zo nya ba de ye ta ni de tongji ngo de ta ye de ra ge zin ji. Chibra hi me lo rong ji ba do zo ne me zo ba rong ju ba do zo ba ne me zong lo ba zo ba 让些别的老让给这些这不让么个说牛的这把那些我让小高小高过的着呢别那成见让你世界与那与特别懂的老大不让么个你世界有的特别懂的的那找到不是我把的名走了弄某些某东弄找弄 Sim je na ne je je de la de ne je wa so no de la de ne ra mu ni je je ra shi ya ba ze be shi wa je wa ke ba da la je ze de la de no je yo ba go je no shi me ba da wa je wa cha de ta re thang di ye ta ye shi wa je be no de je da je ra je ba zo ba de ni me di shi me ta la ke ba shi bo 东江的是那种的些好些见了些吧，对他有人以为见了些，可是东边去可以东，你现在的朋友一些也搞不到你也见了些吧，见了些吧，到热心见嘛些吧，嘛些呗，差不送的。 刚把是没进来了嘞，这都是一都说也刚把新别呢，当年的这都别等到这些的，前边电视上他都觉得他到了这个有没就接定的到吧，他这么松松心啊。 人物这上也能接为人的都接吧，这是谁过的么是吧？都是些没了，接 Genji Jiang Chan Mebe Se Marazibi Trevi Tawachi Mebe Tuavi Jute Lambu Se Yudori Hita Shetan Shanara Shin Yudina. Yo Ni the Javadi Chen Juro Tersu Chune Yang Da Min Juro Kenan no ya Treba Todon Titra the Trevi Min Juro She So Bataro Raji Sumba Shiva and Abani. The Pumbo the Kamana, go very Banamaji, John Shula, Dame, Patella, Pano, Shendu, Lume, Tibo, so you never was also about Combo, Be, Babu, Junior, Dara, the Ginger, Trevor, the Mever Pony. Thì tôi còn bây giờ đó đó đây cái gì bây giờ đang đó đến đó nó để bao nhiêu lên bảo số ngay gì lên bao nhiêu đó gì thế rồi nó lên bây giờ就说就每每是每天就不认真做为就是差不多的然后就把那到给写写人安心我一个人没就是写的能的写的我到了나다다 게냐세나 냐월렘 바가 주르시네 대세바나 자와세 제수 뜻르시나 냐월렘 녀무다 세바네레 엠비에 제제레 녀무 레다 녀무 바세 타르와도 녀무 바세 타르와 주르데 디레 레다 녀무 세베 타르시도 Leñoy yang kan sebe sebe jo yang tin le da nymo nam do le ta zhe le zhe ba dong ba ni jie gao jie xie song so de le ji xi huo ju ba de ne le jie le nymo mo jie ji ba sem da de be guo su ye ji huo na huo ya zhe bi le yin bi le ni nymo le jie wo yu no la du me do la zhe zhe mo zhe de sui xie ma ba ni na ba zhe do ba number two majubo jigde zawaje nyamu na mijewe changde soje nyamu jigde zawaje de da cui mai bei nam do le jesu jigde che da接吧，旁边的爸爸的那不到，说到说了说罢了，电脑上就我把这些把它功能到后呢，你后呢，村里面一些能把这倒别有的倒不些吃，那么多天呢，电视机这把里边这的测试里边今天别这把这样嘛里边倒不你的。我不是到半夜的大雨，我不就让些都好些人我没有把雨那呢，这个的些别这把雨把人就没事不没有把呢，吃不进到天雨进这把的，到把没事多这把没住那呢，地出来些没把那么多把就把民就说那么多把没住吧。yang ada ngai che ngom bara che bo lo nyum be so jo zo lo de ye zo jin che bara che do nyum be so ji zo la da ye zo je ma je bara ne le da che bara min ju la le mi ta mi she ba nam ne ni me jiao da ge shi xiao shi be ge shi che ko re be ko nyum zo nyum min ju ro xie so他们这学电视里看见，他都知道我们说，那他电视开了，原来电视也开了我的，那这种个原来电视开了个多，他原来电视开了那原来电视让新出个的，这让新出那他，这种个让新没是在工作让新也是的，最把习惯开门都是个原来有那看见让新出多了，就是原来开了个多，现在听说他。知道我们是切下面的话是，我听了我的，我们这么的来的话。
Gisela read from page 319 to page 321. That was to give us the blessing of lineage oral transmission, and So he started to give the explanation. Just to recapitulate a key point that we witnessed before is this, that in the lower schools of Buddhist tenets, Buddhist schools of thought, they accept cause and effect relationships and that kind of dependent arising. But what they insist is that because things are produced from causes and conditions, and things are dependent arising in that sense, that they must exist intrinsically. They must exist in and of themselves. Okay? And so here the critic says that so that kind of dependent arising is accepted by all schools of Buddhist thought, right, from the highest to the lowest. The highest is the Prasangika Madhyamika, accept dependent arising of cause and effect, and the lower schools accept cause and effect. So in that sense, he said, so how can Prasangikas make arguments to refute intrinsic reality or intrinsic existence? Because he said, you accept dependent arising that the lower schools of thought accept, cause and effect relationship. So how can you not accept that things are intrinsically existent? Why do you say that things are empty of, devoid of intrinsic realities? No.
Kēlāng sōngyēn tō tsūpi tēngi rīwa jōwa rāngshī yu tōwa nī tū chōrjāng. Rāng ngō chidā nēwa xī khōng tū shūpa mī shī tē, rāngshī mēwa nī tū mēnzī pē. Shēdā yuwa mā yu pē, rāng ngō yuwa, rāng ngō nī tū lākpa dō tā nī yabi shē rī. Yuwa jē mē shē tē, rāngshī mēwa nī tū mī chū pē shēdā, ngō wā rāngshī ngō nī tū chū pē shē sōs. Tā shēdā tē, chēwa tī chōrō kō, ene tē sī wā rē sā. Tende togo tazo xiaomen zong, ene xiba xioni pike minglang xieyi tondo sungyen la xieyi ngo xienpa na xienke, tenpa na taga rang gana tende xiago warwa se. In tenjo ge tende xiago warde se na, nangwa tar xiago marde se, gyuma tar pe tongpe tawa za tende xiago warde se da, tende xiago jikpa de re te xiago menda warde se.
So Prasangikas, tell the realist or the lower schools of Buddhist thought who accept dependent arising of cause and effect, that, as far as the term dependent arising is concerned, is true. I mean, you use it, accept it, and we accept it too. Yeah? But we differ in terms of what dependent arising means, but it's somewhat what it means. Our views about what dependent arising is very different. Yeah? And so what you say is that things exist the way they appear to exist to our ordinary perceptions. Yeah? But that's what we don't agree with you. Yeah? Prasangika said that our notion of dependent arising is that of merely labeled or merely, imputed reality. Yeah. So things appear to us in one way, but they exist in another mode. Okay. So there is a disparity between the way things appear to our perceptions and the way they actually exist. Because of this difference or the disparity, we say that things are just like an illusion. They appear in one way, and they're not as real as they appear to be because they exist in different way. Whereas you insist that things, exist and must exist exactly the way they appear to our ordinary perceptions. So you are clinging to the intrinsic appearances of things, and you insist that this is how things should exist. But we say that's just appearance, but they really don't exist that way. So we both use the term dependent arising, pratityasamutpad, but our views of what dependent arising means is radically very different. Because we talk about dependent arising in terms of mere imputations or merely labeled reality, whereas you explain it in terms of intrinsic existence or reality.
对吧？他的那和尚，原来一点点开朗本着呀，人些没吧，人些也不没，过年点点西西都多么多当，就是没切不得吧？但是他们的那同学们我开了那我不嘛那，得了点不出吧，先买的点不也没在这吧，你名字么样吧？当。대신에 탄예도 동시에 뭐 돈도 탄예도 랑 생이 저 저에 랑시 미예메를 랑지 받자名字뭐 줘봐대 랑지 배장 될라 랑 생이 저 봐면 소년도 좀 남세 세와 가고스 다다다 디체반지야 디 인데 켈라는 인데 랑시 저브로리 가가 찍바래 해서야 디 인다다디 따드네 인디 체반지야디 기마다부 신도베 따스면 셰디 체바유스티 인데 랑지바다 총 텐주와 송바 주간가 디까샤서다.
So where Prasangikas argued that things are just like an illusion, they appear to us as being real, intrinsically existent, but in reality they are devoid of intrinsic reality. And what that means is that things are merely labeled reality, but there is no real substance, so to speak. Whereas Savatandika Madhyamikans and other Buddhist schools of thought, they insist that things exist from its own side or intrinsically. And they do talk about cause and effect relationship, but the cause and effect relationship for them means that that's why things exist intrinsically. That's how they appear to us, and that's exactly how they exist and they should exist. So those two views are radically different, isn't it? Yes, all schools of Buddhist thought accept cause and effect relationship. But for one, cause and effect relationship means that things must exist intrinsically from their own side. For the other, it really means that it should not exist from that side because it is dependent arising. So the views of dependent arising are radically opposing and different from each other.
다 tidra den benusiti 다 kodu 상노 그러잖아. 그다 오면로 그러서 애니 유대 때인데 걔는 랑이 쳐고 인자. 티 희샤신 텐데 걔는 애니 집에랑 시트 걔랑고도 다 세다 텐조가 랑시 메세야 다 명점 제샤스. 어디 그런 현도도 야 무분이지 걔니 엔트리 쪼고레스. 티배도 가져서는 티배는 정신 야, 니시유를 잡에 돈데 라바 다바마에 니시유도 잡에 돈데 다다방 거버네 명점라 너 시바다 저나오스 다 정신다 시로페샤리 다데 다바이 난게 연데 있어와 세다 다케라 난게 데케랑고 제코는 데바티야자 어디 켈는 엔당발 찌쯔 어디다 지버레스 지금도 다케라는 난게 가서 다바 켈는 거다 요마라디 정집에 그런 시로 간가 다 난게 연데서 다반데서 근데 다케린 시제에 다바다 다디 지금 다바 많이 나가시 뭐 같이 다 그렇게 라고 식으로 다바 켈고 그래서 어디 데다 지버레스 거다.
So we are still in the middle of page 319. So the lower schools of Buddhist thought, who do accept dependent arising of cause and effect, they take for granted that things must exist intrinsically, okay? And then they use the cause and effect relationship, to argue that that's why things exist, and they exist intrinsically, and that's how they must exist, okay? So because they take that for granted, so when they are debating with the Prasangika Madhyamikans, And when the Prasangika says that things are merely labeled and devoid of intrinsic reality, they think that, well, Prasangika is simply playing with the words. As a matter of fact, they're with us. You're just simply kind of, I should say, using some kind of a language, it's just a play of the words, but in reality, things must exist, right? So what's the difference between you and me? Because we accept cause and effect, you accept cause and effect, and so you're just saying something empty or whatever, that's just a word play, and they kind of impose their understanding of dependent arising onto Prasangikas, and that's how they really don't understand Prasangika's real point, because they think, in reality we are same. You're just playing with the words. Okay? So a parallelism is drawn between that kind of argument with how the Samkhayas or the Tangchenpa and many non-Buddhist schools of thought, when they argue with the Buddhist, right, about the sound, for them sound is permanent. Okay? Of course, Buddhists accept sound, but it's impermanent, just the opposite. But they say, you Buddhists accept sound, don't you? I say, yeah. Well, then you see, now you're with me, because it's permanent. Because they couldn't get away with their own notion of the sound being permanent. For them, if you accept sound, sound is a quality of a space. Space is a permanent, so therefore sound must be permanent. Okay? So when the Buddhists say, yeah, we accept sound, but not as permanent, impermanent, they're like, yeah, you're playing with words. No. If you accept sound, it has to be permanent, just the way we say it. So they're kind of imposing their notion of permanence of sound onto the Buddhists. So in the same way, the realist schools of thought within Buddhism, so they're imposing their viewpoint of the Prasangika. Yeah, you accept cause and effect? Yes, okay, now you're with me. Don't play with me with the words, that kind of thing. So they kind of miss the whole point, right?
rāngshī mēwa nīla ngēpa chāngde tāngshī tāyé shīngwāng chēwē na tēn jē jē tāgī rāngshī mēwa chūpa dēni mē dē shīngwē tāla kēwa shēmbō wōsi tā tērē tā ngōsā tāngsā tāmē wāsi nā tā rūtā wā sā jīkpa nī jī tā shīmshē shēng nā ēnē kua dēmbā chūpa nā wā nā shīng kē lāng ēnē tēn tē kē lēng wāsi tē kē lēng dē rō tē kē lāng tō shē tē nā ene de call ma shing de wors de zi de ang ko shing lo wors ta te yo de de ne ra hi me cha wa do ji de de ne ra hi yi ma ta do to se de ene call chhe do wors ta do de da te yo na yi chi de ene call chhe ta ba ta ji shi mo to yo ri ru to o me na yi shi de na ene call korea mo te ta ba ta yo ma shi ta.
So the last paragraph above the citation on page 319, so what you find there is this, that lower schools of Buddhist thought who insist that things must exist truly or intrinsically, and within that notion of reality, they said so things have cause and effect relationship, right? Because things have cause and effect relationship, that means they exist really, truly, intrinsically. Okay? So when we subscribe to that notion of dependent arising, then what happens is we are bound within samsara or cyclical existence because of grasping at the true existence or intrinsic reality. Okay? And so we could not get out of samsara. On the other hand, if we understand what the Prasangikas are talking about as dependent arising, okay, because things are dependent arising, they could not exist intrinsically, right? They are empty of true existence, intrinsic existence. And if we follow that line of reasoning and reality, then we are able to counteract our grasping at true existence and intrinsic reality, and then we can find freedom from samsara. We can find liberation and omniscient state. Okay? So if we want to be out of samsara, we want to be liberated, we want to be enlightened, then we need to follow the Prasangika's presentation of what dependent arising mean. But if you follow the presentation of dependent arising in the lower schools of Buddhism, where dependent arising means that things exist intrinsically, then just like we are stuck in samsara, we will be stuck in samsara, okay, for long.
Then that Rajimi made the same Talaka Shambos, she that they made of Jesus on that days Nasi or was in Tina revenge of 10 days you were. So 10 days it is unprecedented to what the show is. They did Trivasha, they try and wrong to the car or she that what they repeat to the insure what the Tabi Shambori, 10 days you go and they made the any tabji shemburi statil tendi tara somsi yorwa yugen tendi siachi yang dagi dagi ro chichi tendi siachi tabe tabe tendi siachi ta di masha de yugen tendi tendi tere rejo tita duta gange khele ngorwa odire
So towards the end of page 319, the last sentence of the last paragraph above the citation reads, I quote, "Because it cuts the bonds of extreme views, the use of dependent arising as a reason to prove that there is no intrinsic existence is a marvelous and highly skillful method," unquote. Okay? And so in Buddhism, we find different types of reasonings to establish what emptiness is, what shunyata is. But of all those reasons, and usually there are 5 prominent types of reasoning, and the one that's upheld as the king-like reasoning is the dependent arising. So dependent arising reasoning is called the king-like reasoning. So which means that we said that whatever our topic of subject is, this phenomenon, is empty of intrinsic reality because it is dependent arising. So that reasoning is a king-like reasoning, and based upon that reasoning, if we understand that whatever that phenomenon we are talking about does not exist intrinsically, is devoid of intrinsic reality, then we see a way out of samsara, isn't it? It's a way to freedom state, Otherwise, if we think that dependent arising means that things exist intrinsically, then we are forever stuck like in samsara, just like we always have experienced it. We think that things must exist the way we experience them, the way they appear to our perceptions, and which means we reify the intrinsic reality. Okay? And as Geshe said, we talked about dependent arising in 3 different sense or meanings, right? The first level of dependent arising is dependent arising of cause and effect. Now that is accepted by all Buddhist schools of thought, right? And mostly we are talking at that level. If something is dependent on its causes, that thing cannot exist just by itself, like, hi, I'm here. Like, no, you are dependent on something else, right, for existence. So therefore, you can't exist intrinsically. Okay? So that is the basic level understanding of dependent arising of cause and effect. Then the next level of dependent arising we talk about is in the sense of relativity, right? In reference to this, we can talk about that. In reference to this side, we can talk about that side, right? Tall and short or whatever, right? All those things are in reference to each other. We can posit that something is small because something else is big. Right? Something else is tall because something else is short, So that kind of, dependent arising. Then the subtlest notion of dependent arising is that of how everything is merely labeled, merely imputed by terms and concept, That is the subtlest meaning of dependent arising, And that covers all phenomena. Everything is merely labeled by terms and concepts. So therefore, everything could not exist intrinsically. Everything is dependently existent in that sense.
On the Tongyang, the signature of the Geshe, how he came to what they tell you, Jen La Lecon to Tongbashi, how he don't share the power, she come but this or that, set on the density. Never do did years are in it and a day. Modu Shivali in say, how you can give a tema, can give a tema, take care on your teeth. In 10 days, Rahim English. What this song is? That is 6 days of the day. She come but a money, Jen Java, there's that. 建立起来，让西马就被吃不松了是，康熙建立起来的马就是的，他建立起来让西马这不认识，的吃不松认识。刚把是被建了啥来被天天东让西都松西，但刚把书把建立起来让西有没有说的，建立起来的让西没有同了写的是吧？刚把西文东西在这到过那平庸点多噻，康熙东西写的朋友认识的长大。的我问你这了嘛就不现在，我那张上这个让西嘛是天天那家的，让西东北吹的些时候呢，这他朋友认识那他吹行的，关键他忙到了中个，老忙到养到了老中个的这些话朋友是呢。
So at the bottom of page 319, we have a stanza quoted from a sutra, which is labeled as Question of the Naga King. And I quote, Bhagavan or Buddha said, whatever is produced from conditions is not produced. It is not intrinsically produced. Whatever depends upon conditions, I consider empty. One who knows emptiness is diligent. Okay, unquote. So on the top of next page, the explanation is given. The first two lines, whatever is produced from conditions, meaning causes and conditions, is not produced. It's not produced intrinsically, right? Because it's produced by causes and conditions. So it is not intrinsically produced. Okay? So which means that we can prove that things are empty of intrinsic reality because things are produced dependently. Okay? Whatever depends upon conditions, so that thing or phenomenon is empty. Okay? It's emptiness. I consider it as empty. One who knows emptiness is diligent. Diligent in the sense that one who knows emptiness for what it is, so that person has really found the reality as it is. Diligent in the sense that your perception or understanding reality matches what the reality is. Okay? And as Geshe explained, that if we understand how things are empty of intrinsic reality, yet they also exist and function dependently, there is a harmony between dependent arising and emptiness, right? They coexist and they complement each other. So we understand that kind of reality, complementary between emptiness and dependent arising. Then we are diligent ones, meaning that our understanding or perception of the reality, it matches the reality as it is.
Because so teaching the KB things show dojo the Tadal never you may see, then the Dobby, transition of some source. Then the then citizen, there is citizen in the ranching to Del City, you ever think was that you ever were. Said that any Karsa. Then you don't be told that don't but then you don't say the 10 years in the Hendax and then they don't be Chavati, Haku or the don't but then you share the Yomaro. Don't but then you don't, then they don't the Nikadi in the D Tango seriously.
So on top of page 320, we have a citation from Sutra that reads, the learned will know dependently arisen phenomena and avoid extreme views. And so as Geshe explained, if we look at the term ten del, ten means dependent, del means, the tenjung is dependent arising. Tendel means dependently existent. Okay? So ten, the dependent, what it really refutes or it excludes is that things can't exist intrinsically, right? Because they are dependent. Yeah? And del, the del means the relationship. Things are dependently related. That's what the Tibetan word says, tendel. Okay? So the word related, it means that things are existent. Okay? Things are empty of intrinsic reality, but they do exist. They are not non-existent. Okay? So the term tendel, dependently related, literally translating, it really means that things are empty of intrinsic reality, but they do exist. Okay? They are not non-existent. So many, schools of thought seem to understand that because things are dependent arising, so they are empty of intrinsic reality. But many find it difficult to understand the other way around. Because things are empty, therefore they are dependent arising. Because dependent arising and emptiness complement each other. Okay? Because things are empty, so therefore they could exist. They are dependently existent. Okay? So other way around, they find it very difficult to understand. But many find it, relatively speaking, easy to understand that things are empty of intrinsic reality because they are dependent arising. Okay? Dependent arising means emptiness. A lot of the people find it, relatively speaking, easy to understand. But to say that because things are empty, therefore they are dependent arising. So that one, they have to rack their brain. I didn't say that, but yeah.
在咸阳是让我这个让些人的家人子这位都是搞了嘛，是不是的让心了？经济这样才没为，在什么子没，这边朝这里没为，还有这里没为，主要没为就得是，这是我大看见，对了呀，那让心之外，那在啥小子这家人子这话，他就是啥呢？上去考虑宿舍这的人都签约了，他听给这什么啥？ 是的，家人都说，至少跟那让心没时候，有时候嘛，那让心吃饭咱手要嘛的是。哦，对这些，但让因为有这些，但让心得了经济这样产品，什么这个做到这里面为是，让心招生呢，因为国际原来有些没那没什么的，国际一怕就所学习呀，那空白东西呀这样，同胞们啥话说这个，提这个那下节要嘛是吧？ 지도 다 심지가 아니 코알 뭐 야초야 요 말이죠. 다 여기저서 그 다가는 소야 요 말아. 어디 타고 그래서 교재니래도.
So we are on top of page 320, and as Geshe explained, that during the time of the Buddha, of course, most of the kind of followers of Buddha. They belong to hearer's vehicle or Sarvaka Yan, and there were many realized ones, but none of them said, things exist intrinsically, so if things were to exist intrinsically, then they would have spoken about it, like, hey, I saw it, it's intrinsically. None of them said. They said, as a matter of fact, they said things don't exist intrinsically, so that's part of the reason why things don't exist intrinsically based upon their realization. The other one is if things were to exist intrinsically, okay, then we could not change reality or anything at all. Change is impossible, right? If things were to exist intrinsically. Yeah? So whatever the things is, it will be like that forever and forever. So which means those of us sentient beings who are in samsara, forever and forever, we will be trapped in samsara. There is no hope at all because we can't change anything. Right? Intrinsic reality excludes any kind of change possibility, right? We cannot say, you know what, because things interact, causes and conditions can bring change. No, because intrinsic reality could not accept that kind of change by any means or method. Okay? So if things were to exist intrinsically, then things will exist forever, just the way they are, and we sentient beings will forever be doomed in samsara because we can't change, and we be like, oh, I want a better human being. I'm doing better these days. I'm improving. Well, you cannot have improvement. You're intrinsically existent. What are you talking about, right? So if you have no improvement, well, you can't get out of samsara because just the way we are, we can't be out of samsara.
여인들이 대체인지를 태수시는 양현다면지를 개는 나야 저도 최면주시 어디서도 계속으로 이는 여인들이 세요 말이야 나들에도 다 태수서 한다 근데 데모트와도 지금 도와 뒤저디는 양현다 도와요 말이야 인데 개발도 상시제는 개발도 랑도 남자도 가지 세외 있는 면은 펜토 말고 저바진 딘지본 타바토는 요마로 지금 펜토산 메샤로.
So in the middle of page 320 we have a citation from Elephant Ornament Sutra, Hasti Kashya Sutra. It reads, if phenomena were intrinsically existent, then the conqueror and his disciples would know it. With static phenomena, no one would pass beyond sorrow. The learned would never be free from elaborations, unquote. Okay? If things were to exist intrinsically, then Buddha would have told us about it, and he should know about it. Okay? And those other realized disciples should know about it, but none of them realize things to exist intrinsically. As a matter of fact, the other way around, isn't it? And if things were static, means fixed intrinsically, then none of us can go beyond sorrow. Okay? And so all this like a learning, we are doing dharma, study, contemplation, meditation, practice, retreat, all of these are like useless efforts. It doesn't matter how much you study, how much you practice, because things are intrinsically existent and you can't change it. Just get real. It's all waste of time practicing anything, right? But that's not what it is. Okay?
어디 거기서 저기 해서부터로 납제 수보다 시바다 가바니 제시다 풍보다 감당이 뭐고비 리버난 예스 쉐다메 버텐을 파우나 현디 뭐지 세번제니 세마드스 스타디가도데 에는 사실 해당시네 사실 납제 수보다 시바 가바 저 에는 풍보다 감지 딱딱하게 리버트지 요네 इन तो ही जोया छे दाम जोया के थी को ये विषय ना या वो तो और इस ये ना दिन तारे दिखे गंगा ही देना तेज मान सकते हो इन्हीं जर्म जोया छे में समझे
And so Langpa Tsongkhapa said that if we look up in Arya Nagarjuna's fundamental treatise, especially in chapters 3, 4, and 5, he really gives a lot of reasons to refute the intrinsic existence of the sources, aggregates, and constituents. But Lama Tsongkhapa said, if I talk about all of those things, it will become too much here. So I'm kind of skipping it. I'm just making a reference here that in those chapters, Nagarjuna talks a lot about how all these other phenomena, such as aggregates, sources, and constituents, are also empty of intrinsic reality.
근데 다 숨바다 콤비 저번주는 세다 페제데 돈이 된파 타셔면도 노라지 다 돈이 된파다 고니야 되지도 가르스 다때 차이죠 대다 다 다기라시 제 뭐저 저번 뒤에서 매번 통네 뒤에서 매번 통네 뒤돈 컴바셰발레스 다 다긴 zembe jigda dola tindon tilon deba nyawan deba so ngar shebe lemba hindo jing tilon lembe jing yisiwan jong mebe se sibe jing pungbu nyizo jo jewa sebe tabatobde rabji joje bale da dagi shebe chir nganji ngayin zime jor sheda nang ba shiru ngotala da dagi nyam se na nyalam ba ga Geshe tesi pana jewa se je song so se ta de me da thu gum da ganje ta da me gum khari or se na en tesi da dagi ze ba do da dagi ze ba do san ti kun la me nimu ti do nimu ti ga le sa me le ma sa na jewa le ti ju en jewa je ne ganje ta ba tho re so ta.
So at the bottom of page 320 and top of page 321, the next sub point C reads, how to eliminate obscurations by becoming accustomed to those views. Okay, now kind of we assume that we have graduated out of all that debate about what emptiness is and what it should be, and all that. Let's say we graduated out of that whole presentation and the arguments. Now we said, okay, now we kind of agreed, okay, what emptiness is. So then we can say, so what's the point of that? All that debate, and if you know emptiness, so what? What's the big deal? What do we achieve? Okay, so answer to that question is, as Geshe explained, that if we realize emptiness or shunyata as it is, then we are able to counteract our two types of grasping at I or mine, and grasping at mine. when those two types of graspings are uprooted from our mind, knocked out of our mental system, then all other delusions, afflicted emotions who are grounded in these two graspings, so they are gone. So goodbye to them. Okay? So when all these afflicted emotions have left our mental system, then we don't create negative or contaminated karmic actions under the influence of afflicted emotions and graspings. Okay? So when that kind of contaminated karmic actions stop, well, now we're out of samsara, right? Because so that's the way to freedom state. So that's why we struggle. We make every effort to understand what emptiness is. Not only understand it, familiarize our mind more and more, develop intimacy with that knowledge, right? So that we are able to counteract our graspings, our afflicted emotions, and through that we can cut through the contaminated karmic actions, and through that we get out of samsara.
사지 부모가라 과요들 네가 녀알네버세디 엔가 뉴무스 시바 레임베스다 간제 레데 뉴무를 때네 에네 레사 카르사데 다문라 레사 델데니 껴알링고로 어디서 레임베 께 줄레데 뉴무 세베스다 당지세는 엔 레데 뉴무세는 레사야 요마르바디 에네 카르사 세베 타바 여데 팅일 에네 고 타도 레데 뉴무세서는 any lesson me that any jawalin yomo the tabatoya tiris tingili le nimu sebe tar yeso se ta tarwa se adi kare se na le de nimu mo ta sagji le de nimu mali basi so na any tabatop do goris o tabatoya mo de tire tabatop se na saja heda do go ya do te ni boya do tire kai yomo so kanji
No, so. We're on top of page 321, and as Geshe explained, that once we realize emptiness as it is, we familiarize our mind with the realization, okay, more and more, and through that we're able to counteract our two types of grasping, uproot them, and through that we're able to uproot all the afflicted emotions. Through that, we stop creating karmic actions under their influence, and that's the way out of samsara and its suffering. And how is that? As we have a quote from Nagarjuna's fundamental treatise, which reads, "Through extinguishing karma and afflictions, there is liberation." Right? So what does liberation, nirvana, mean? Nibbana. Nibbana means the exhaustion of afflicted emotions and contaminated karmic actions created under their influence. Right? When that whole process stops, then we are out of samsara. So now we are in the state of nirvana or liberation. So nirvana is a state of mind. It is not a physical location. It's not some kind of a land we have to migrate to. It's not. It doesn't require us to move our houses or something. Change our neighborhoods. It's just a state of mind that we achieve once we put an end to afflictive emotions and contaminated karmic actions. Right? When the afflictive emotions are out of our mental system, right, then the karmic actions that we usually create under them, they stop. So when both stop, afflictive emotions, karmic actions stop, then, that's the way out of samsara. Okay? Because what traps us, what brings us back into samsara over and again, right? We are reborn over and again, over in samsara. These are the two things, contaminated karmic, afflictive emotions and contaminated karmic actions. When these two things are stopped, then we are out of samsara.
What the Karsa Lady say here's the Linu Save, Ta Linu Save, Kansa Seva, Kan Save, Seva Joy, Tinil, later Nimu Namdo, tell it to that Trevor, Tombani, Jingavan, she song so sad. That even that later Nimu say, I think I did Jigosina, this is because Tamata was already the not the Gayenzi Basananda, Kansa, she that should the Kansa, tell it. Then you move that do a quarter carrying a tell the number of Mamuja, that number that less or less, go to the number of Sawarwa. Number to that trailer, Trevor, Toma Yigaba, just the town. That in the don't you come the in the Atono ya do the down, in the disease head to the disease and a dance head to the down. In Yumusi says as an in the lesa yomar kun loya yomarwa. Sheta dige ganga sawe dangsin season and the kun le the namdo the teen dribu dunga the ganga said over. But the gym and the dribu me in ganga said over is the conji. Dinzi sen the say Karsa, Ganga say Karasana, Kotsawa was the Sawa de men do Jigbarwa.
No.
But the Ganga said over is suicide.
No.
Here's some.
So on page 321, we have a citation that reads, karma and afflictions arise from misconceptions. These misconceptions arise from elaborations. These elaborations are stopped by emptiness, unquote. So as Geshe explained that those lines, how is that emptiness really liberates us, if you say, the realization of emptiness for that matter, is that what binds us within samsara, existence, at the very deep down grassroots level are these two types of grasping. Grasping at I, or the self, and grasping at mind. Okay. Because of these two graspings, they give rise to different types of afflictive emotions or delusions, Geshe. And afflictive emotions give rise to all kinds of misconceptions. These misconceptions are we call fabrications, elaborations. Now we fabricate every reality and we see this and that which are really not true. So all this drama rama, shows up. That's my modern translation. Drama rama. The misconceptions of the drama ramas. So elaborations, I like the drama rama than the elaborations, which means nothing to me. But drama ramas come up. And so because of this drama ramas, now we create all kinds of karmic actions, and these karmic actions produce their results, right? Suffering and pain and difficulties, The way to stop all of those things is, we want to cut the very root of all the things, right? Because that's the one best thing we can do. If we kind of trim the things, the trimming doesn't work that long for a long time, so we don't want to do the trimming part, We just want to uproot delusions from within our mind, and so we need to uproot grasping at self and grasping at mind. So what can really effectively help us to do that is the realization of emptiness. Okay? So that's why emptiness is so crucial here. So once we understand emptiness, then we have to meditate on it. We familiarize our mind with emptiness more and more because we have to go through the 5 stages of the path. Okay? And through this process, we are able to counteract our graspings at self and mind. We uproot them. That would be great news. Then all other delusions fall apart, And because of that, now we don't create any more contaminated karmic actions under their influence because the boss is dead, So we are free. So that's the way out of samsara. The reason it works is, right, the suffering and pain are the results of our karmic actions. Our karmic actions are prompted by our afflictive emotions. Our afflictive emotions are so stubborn in us because they are supported by the graspings. Graspings are so firm and stable. So until we shake them and we uproot them, then all other things, drama ramas continue. And that's why emptiness is so crucial here.
Here's the Geshe call you and then Lily Jell, you move in same that they will go some you do corner call trip you in BS. You be laying you moon like you know, do the last service, some of those see. Number 2, Majuba Jidin Majuba Jidis our you moon, no, Mejeves. Dangso you moon Jagges our chin, Teta Sushi my Namdo Chaos. But this is that language said the tower did Dangzi Kona Redi, Sena, Saudis and Sagan Salud of the Dangzi till then, and you do me to Shongzin to till then, and Namdo Mambuche, till then, and the leg gave me the Dramid Society or the two Sagoris. Because Shagdan so you Jigtat Sui Maybe Namdo Lechaos, Sushi Mayba Sena, Tira Dakanje, some Mundu Ganga de Kaja that day. Sushi Maybe Namdo Riva. What the when the Chowi Mal Shaga was the Jiring Shagdan said, in the Condon, so Diego got Sushi Maybe or Takanji or Tiris. She does Namdo till Jerry, Jigdis Chuyetas, Jigdis Chuyetanzo, Carcera, near the Magic, the dead of Carza. near the menu, Jigdish, dog, you may be going to say, hidden search, or the Jigdish, the Shiji Dang, Jiba permit the Pumba, the Gnabula, so Takanamdo, you can say in the Ganga, that no, you'll tie your marva.
No.
Kanamdo, you Ganga, Yon, the less hour is going that.
No, so.
The Dino, Yam, the Wamba Shamba, Takone Sujima, Vijay, Nabodobi, Uteral, Allah, the Tobashivi, Sheriff, Namdo, Deni, Dini, Trouble, Jetty, Sixely, Jigdimi Travatayan, Malu, Batomba Niki, Novo times the Tomba Nidus, Tayan Gaba Joros. Shida Jena Kang, Nova Biba Yunani, Shida the Shevi, Treva Yuba Joji. Motion for Mamma Bana, Shaba Jenta, motion for Mamma Bana, Shaba Jenta, Eugene, Treva Duba Mishido, Treva Duba Mishido. Treva Majunani, T. Sushima, Toba Juba Minjuro, Seta Dinsari, Karsa. Nobody don't you drive and go about your city, Dick Hadisata, don't you do the guard, Harrison, Hungry, Noba Miba Yenani, Noba Miba Dinzita, Danzi Yenani, Shiggy, he would travel, Jersey travel now the Nando Momodi, Yadu Nando Momodi, young days.
No, so.
But this was Georgie, motion of Mamma Partner, Shakbachin, Shakbachin, Ta, dear Eugene Trevor, and Duper Mishido. Because she travel Georgie, motion for Mammy, but that Hajeta, Dinzi the Minnesota.
No, so.
Motion payment, Mashan now that check that got to you are your marva. But then Dinzi the Mena in the Til Kulam, you moved the same age at Namdo, the late to Ganga Sagma, this is it.
No,
What is it?
no, so. So we are on page 321, and as Geshe explained, that much of what we experience in samsara, mostly pain, suffering, and difficulties, these are the outcomes of our karmic actions. Our karmic actions are very much related to or grounded in our grasping at selves. Okay, but the relationships between our karmic actions and grasping selves are mediated by many factors, mediating factors. This is where afflictive emotions come up, delusions, okay, and the drama ramas, the misconceptions come up, so when we talk about Tsumi Yiche, which has been translated as inappropriate mental application, well, which means nothing really, and then now they translate as misconceptions. It seems to be a little better, although drama rama seems much better to me. So I mean, all this, the worldly, mundane afflictive emotion we experience, like how we are obsessively attached to friends and the dear and the near ones and the lovey-dovey ones, like all of that. And then we kind of hate, all this bunch of we call enemies, and we really don't want to see them, kind of we wish them die. I mean, he didn't say that, but, that one. And then there's this bunch of people we don't care whatever happens to them because they're strangers, who are you? I mean, I don't care. So all this, right, being attached too much here and hate this much and then really don't care this bunch of people. Now there's nobody left, because we cover the whole ground, right? So all this, are the drama ramas and misconceptions. And where do they come from? They come from the afflictive emotions. And afflictive emotions are grounded in the grasping at self and mind. Okay? So once we tackle the graspings through realizing emptiness, then all these other things will stop. Okay? And so that's important for us to realize. When we talk about how we get so caught up in 8 worldly concerns, 8 worldly concerns are very much part of the drama ramas, because these are very much related to the afflictive emotions and the graspings, And so if the graspings are not there, all these other things will stop by nature. Okay, and just the example given here is like there is no such thing as a son or a daughter of a barren woman, right? So I mean, what's the fun of talking about how beautiful she is or how handsome he is? Well, who is he or she? Because a barren woman can't give birth to any child. So talking about the handsomeness and the beauty of such a child is just a fiasco, right? So therefore, you can't get attached to a handsome son of a barren woman or a beautiful daughter of a barren woman because that doesn't exist. Okay? So in the same way, if our graspings are uprooted through realization emptiness, then all these other things won't exist, and then we will be free from samsara.
Nyuma mi jigzo tayo tsawa jen ma chepa le da shewa minjurla, le ta mi shepa na ni chewa da gashi shaya kowa nyamso nyuma minjuro, she so sa, ta taduk nabde, jigzo tawa de yona, ene tela de ne nyimu tel dis le sa nukuri, she ta kowa kowa de gres. Jigta me na, le mangbo yona, kanchi nyimu, jigta me na nyimu sheda me yo she, nimu mene le mangbo yona la ko jawa len to mara ko karsa ganzu sawon de len de sawon jiware che da ku dibu ya yo mara ta jikta de yesa na le sa ngema le me diba de ganga de sha sa ina yangjo yang ko kun la sa sa sho ro wa chi di le de yu ni na le ene nimu de tu cha zi ro wa de zi wa.
So of these two let me say, primary factors that bind us in samsara and don't let us to be free from samsara, afflictive emotions, delusions, and contaminant karmic actions. The worst are the afflictive emotions. Okay? And deep down below, there is the grasping at self, or graspings at selves, and they are referred to as the transitory view, or jigta, the view of transitory collection. Okay? Because of that transitory view, or the view of transitory collection, all other afflictive emotions can arise, and then all the drama rama start, and then all the karmic actions ensue, and then all the outcomes come. Okay, that's the whole process. So if we can uproot the transitory view through realizing emptiness, everything else would stop. And even if there are some remnant karmic actions, if the delusions are not there anymore, these karmic actions cannot bring the results. It's just like burnt seeds. Burnt seeds don't germinate. Or it's like a seeds, they remain dry forever in your pockets, and you never, water them, you never see them. So these seeds cannot grow by themselves. So it's like that. If the afflictive emotions are purified, gotten rid of, then some remnants of the karmic actions, they become impotent, not important, useless. That's what I mean. They cannot produce anything.
저로 동반이 가베 대단 도반 주되는 티니래 다들 팀이다 마르비셔 팀사리 거기 대다 동반이 예 줘봐 말려봐 마르바 니와시 생이지 될라된 줘봐도 저 여기 줘봐도 제 장남버도 원도시 줘봐다 딘시 줘봐도 제는 남버도 원도 남버도 로베 뉴무번 도라 레드 뉴무번 로비 제완도베 티시 동반이 코네 줘봐탄진도비 생이제 인비스 양엔데 해저 현주서 송데 닌 돈이 있다와 시베서 주지다 타벨랑지 소든저 주지 양다바 템바 인비 델링예바 템바 이고서 스다 도르든티 다 돈이 세야디 또고시 이지메지 돈이 스모도는 타바토야요 등에세 타바토야 대화드가 요마리 셰다 티선도 돈이 도야 타울다 건지 베바비 거의 소소 가지 정신 배니 any 조구리 스위세리.
So we're on top of page 322. I mean, we have those passages quoted from Chandaka, these clear words, choice. So all of them are stating the same thing, that we must make every effort to understand and realize what emptiness is, because that's the only way to stop our suffering and to be out of samsara. Okay? If you're really interested to stop suffering and get out of samsara, there is no other way around it. We just have to make every effort to realize emptiness. And as it stated here, I quote, this passage proves that the view of emptiness cuts the roots of cyclic existence and is the heart of the path to liberation. Hence, you must gain firm certainty about this. So we should, strive to realize the emptiness if we wish to end the suffering and get out of samsara.
Dewe garsa nyeba nyi gol deta no lomo pakpe hyung deta geni nirang liang chwe yi dangme chwe tamye je rangshi meba taba yoba sawa songde kwa le chwa rangshi meba tongpa nyi tawa zhoba songpa shiro tawa de nirang namji de rang nyumu mase padu gomshing nyumu de seba de tizang shoba song tu ringbo goma meshibe hide bom me ni so shangshi seba nan nyumu seba de goni rang kwa le chwa zang shoba menzi simje tabji to sangye do yawa hije jeba seji de gobi che yurong do chota yebe gende goma yin no se oda de je dang rangju meje de ya nira dong yu do ma do ge zhe mo xie ro gyo ro a che ta ten yu lo le nira yin na dong yu che wo le si bu zi pa we gong ba de long di gang ga za xie long di ro tu do se
Chwe ke tamero ge.
la chue da me sen da dong yi sen da ji ba chue da we o che lo mo pi shu la ni rang chue da we do ba yi se o di che o di che da ni rang sha chao se ni ga en 타바 거 내 친지 직과시 다 니라도 소소비게 동이 코알 르트 사모타시 엔 디소도 니모세야 곰제 담에 곰 대가란 데보시 히데빠모도 시 엔 코알 최점신 되고 그랬어 정신스바도 심지 타도 사요 고마도 거서 엔 깨바 장면송 소산 때 유름고 돼야지 데는 총이 자셔버사니 히데뽕고 그랬어 뭐 디레지 손이 자신부심어디 쳐바지르모도 질 따외살의 장주스보다 인하년 에는 공야 검색 직벌에 쳐봐야 말이지.
So in middle of page 322, and so unlike other schools of thought, according to Arya Nagarjuna's treatises, Sharvakas and Pratika Buddhas, or hearers and solitary realizers, they too realize the emptiness of phenomena to be free from samsara or single existence. Okay? Because some schools of thought might say that Sharvakas and Pratika Buddhas realize the selflessness of a person, not of the phenomena. But according to Arya Nagarjuna, they realize the selflessness of phenomena, or emptiness phenomena as well. So in the case of Sharvakas and Pratika Buddhas, what they are really truly interested is that they are really fed up with samsara, okay, and they don't want to suffer anymore, right? And so they meditate on selflessness or emptiness, and so they're able to uproot afflicted emotions from their mind and put an end to samsara and get out of samsara and be in nirvana. That's all they're interested in, and they are successful in doing that. Okay. Now they're still stuck with what we call cognitive obscurations or obscuration to omniscience, okay? Because that's not their interest, at the moment at least, right? But in the case of bodhisattvas, right, bodhisattvas also make efforts to realize emptiness, right, put an end to afflicted emotions and suffering, but they're also interested in benefiting all sentient beings. And because of that, bodhisattvas engage in many activities to accumulate incredible collections of merit and wisdom. Okay? And that's the only difference. Because they accumulate a lot of merits, right, that is integrated with the wisdom, so they are able to achieve enlightenment, right, for the sake of all beings. As far as emptiness is concerned, emptiness that's realized by Sharvakas and Pratika Buddhas and bodhisattvas, exactly the same thing. Okay? There is no such thing as more emptiness, less emptiness, high emptiness, no emptiness. I mean, he didn't use the term, but it's just one emptiness, right? Then why difference between Sharvakas, Pratika Buddhas, and bodhisattvas is bodhisattvas, they are interested not only in the freedom of themselves, but more in the freedom of other sentient beings, and therefore they accumulate a lot of merit for 3 great countless eons. And because of that, combining that with the wisdom, so they are able to find enlightenment, whereas Sharvakas and Pratika Buddhas are stuck with their nirvana.
Yumbi Jibasam Pony, she Jiba Pony, Penna, Da maybe Da maybe talk by Jingy, Tomba the Company, Nimbo Imaja. Daming also the Tonga, Tomba Pony, Gomba Pony, Gomba Ponala, Ring the Gumgo and Jaws, or did that Shanju Simba, Nidu Cheva Carriages, the Penitent, the Tijan, Tonga to the Tan and the Thomas had Bangla, or was the Tonga to the Tan, Tomba Bangir, Gomba Bangers. Tony was the top of line, but you can hear that was Chia, that Tono Parjamin, the Gono Parjamin. Yina Tono Parjamin, the Tomba Bantu, the Gomba Bantu to us. Gomba any Jigu, though, what is the mill combo of the Tor Yashim Simazi, the Chavashani, in the Chanju Simbata, and the Nirang Tibet. He was saying, Chavo didn't do this, but Tawa Chigwaris, Tawa was kids on your mercy. That did not tell you to my children to Chigwaris.
So the at the bottom of page 322, what you find stated is this again, as Geshe explained. From Prasangika Madhyamika's point of view, as far as emptiness is concerned, emptiness realized by Sharvakas and Pratika Buddhas and emptiness realized by Bodhisattvas exactly same, not even slightest difference. Okay. But then why is there a big difference in terms of the outcomes? You know, the attainments between the Sharvakas, Pratika Buddhas, and Bodhisattvas. That has something to do with Bodhisattvas. They pursue the path much, with accumulation of merit. You know, when you look at the 5 paths, path of accumulation, path of seeing, path of we'll call meditation, no more learning, the path of seeing, you know, the what we call the uninterrupted path of seeing, parchemelam, that is very effective in terms of uprooting object of abandonment by that path. But that uninterrupted path of seeing cannot get rid of object of abandonment on the path of meditation. Okay, and so Bodhisattvas, so they integrate both method and wisdom together. Right, they accumulate a lot of merit while on this path. So therefore, they are not only able to get rid of afflicted emotions, but also the cognitive obscurations or the obscurations to omniscience. Okay, so that's the difference, you know. Otherwise, as far as emptiness is concerned, it's exactly the same. Now, that's one of the unique assertions of the Prasangika Madhyamika. They said that emptiness realized by Sharvakas and Pratika Buddhas and Bodhisattvas is exactly the same thing. Okay. So we will stop there today, and we welcome your questions or any clarifications we need to make.
It was said that, Geshe said that, and it's in the book, how the lower schools, the fact that they see the phenomena dependently arise is for them a proof that they intrinsically exist. It seems to me that actually we do that, I don't know if I understand correctly, the process of this elaboration, misconception, how elaborations lead to misconceptions. It seems to me that we also perceive it exactly the same way. Everybody, yes, not only the Shravakas, because in order for us for this perception to induce karmic action, we need to see things as both truly existent and yet as dependently arisen. These two things we have to see simultaneously as truly existent and dependently arisen, because this the only thing that will provoke us to do something about, you know, the 8 worldly concerns. You know, if we see them as intrinsically existent, but not dependently arisen, then we would not do anything. There's nothing to do about it.
Right. Yes.
Am I understanding it correctly? That again, we see them. The reason, the question is why should that perception of things as being truly existent induce karmic action? That's really why the perception that we perceive things as intrinsically existent should provoke karmic action.
Okay.
And it seems to me that the reason it does is because we see them as dependently arisen, yet truly existent at the same time.
Kurang this was that again kana the kaso called Truda Omalia and a Juda David and the Deborah again. Juda David and the Dignamsha Station of the Church that Rangun the Juba, the Rakshin Juba Lago again. Says that Ananzo Gita Namju Casore. And just so I am your chairman that conjure love and nation under the Tata de Gorwas and she do somebody a name Carla or Tangazung when a tab in Arabica. Sure Tamje. Church again. Judeg Namsha de and do Rogain. And ya Temba Druba, Ranshin Druba de Rogain. Chesa Ranshin Druba Zimba Digi can lay any lay of Kulon the Mason Rogain. Digging out the less Sagula Rogain. Did you watch lek on the Sagos? But Ranshin Druba Zimba digging Yamdong and Judeg then they kill them Rogain. A Didegaton ending on the left side you go, my vessel Rogain. Another Karisam and Kawasa and Karisam Rogain. Ranshin Druba Zimba de Yabache. Young Judeg Namsha de Kelamacher, they let you go, Marissa again. Kulon Chicken, the Judegi Kasoda, Judith David Namsha Doba de Kulon Chicums, Lake Widget.
Les Hayat Zero.
That thing on this again, Tenzing on the Lessa and the Chef Lover again. The Tenzi to go, Madame, the Dinium, the Judith David Namsha de Dirty Gorwaski. There's not the ending on the Uzur Stakacho also again.
Then the Dinzi said, the game said, because you call Dinzi Cursiverson. Nanga said, Tambo, I teach all the course here. The king so share Rexos, you go. Did you do that in the Delia Shagdan Law Mambo Geshe, didn't in the Savors? It got they can go less somewhere. Go Carson did someone, let us call Tomo Kogu, Juzin Carson, Nanga said, Tambo Jeza. In telepen to a divine that doing see I could tell the Shukshabu some years. In the Chagdang Logan is a sort of pen on get to doing so they take number drum Rashid and tell them Coco rest. Most of the Zikongi, Lessa or Marata. Could you ever own you move the jet? You won't do that for the jet, they was going to the Jora.
Tenzin Yamdolia, Judah David Namsha the Mother in any Kabake Omar again. Judah David Namsha Durba de Rogan, less side like Shukan mixes getting or take Omar. Tenzin what did she go again?
But Judah didn't know that they got chewing the call that they couldn't, they didn't know the year was your year was ready. She the Koakoya Namsha of the Kadia Sagorson in Denzil den Sagor, Escota. Denzil Mena. In the Migod that was Sagmar, but the leg Migod.
You didn't have you and Tenzi Sagma Sagor again. La. You didn't have said you in there, but that's not calling you again. Andre Timber, but Tenzi is in your wagon. Yam do the Yamdolia, Judah Dibinamsha Dugo or was again. Chesang Andre, less side, Judah Dibinamsha Durba Digi, Shuk Jen General wagon. Less Sagomar, Tenzi was in Menrock, for a less asset and the rest was again.
Judah duty, 10 days the Namja didn't Musum told that they couldn't do you do not say your.
No.
You're that the Koakoya you did of the going to getting in the say, I did regret John Machako. That's someone you could get to sit not regret the things of require Jango Yamara. The Koa the Jungo River said Rebel and Dogua. But this is the Koa called the Kazakoris and or density in the Kogoris. What is it?
What Geshe says is that yes, the way we see things, right, as being truly intrinsic existent, and also we accept the notion of cause and effect relationship, is exactly like the lower schools of Buddhist thought, they talk about. And how the grasping at true existence, intrinsic, it prompts us karmic actions, is because once we have this, how should I say, grasping at the intrinsic self or the I, and then we get attached to that I. So attachment prompts us to, right, that's a delusion. Then do everything to protect it, to defend it, to, right, engage with it. Now, because of this grasping at the self, then we see these other intrinsically existent others, and maybe we don't like them, and then now we hate them. The hatred comes in, and then we make actions to, right, to challenge them or whatever. So this is how the grasping at self, and it prompts other delusions to arise, and these delusions, prompt us to actions. Let's say we don't have that grasping. As far as the cause and effect is concerned, that's a reality. It exists. Like how the seeds produce, sprouts and things like that. Right? That is taken for granted. These things exist. The reason why, we experience different outcomes, suffering things, is because of our karma, and our karmas are related to all these things. Yeah.
어디에 간주도 되시고 간제 다 능에 메도제 대화 토야 상못한 능에 메가 대화가 누야 그래 줘서 최에서 시거와 최에서 다 과거지기 마이는 해야요 말아 어디서는 내가 한 셔레스 팀디 해는 컨버져야 다 시가다 무슨 저도 된데레스 히라시와 말아
as Geshe said, I mean, how should I say, as far as the cause and effect relationship that dependent arise is concerned, it exists, it is a reality, right? If you think in terms of this building, right, it is a result of so many causes and conditions, But as practitioners, our main interest is that, okay, we do not want to suffer anymore. Okay, we want to get out of the, samsara. So that's why we have to talk about, what has kept us in samsara and what, makes us to do the things we don't want to do that produce a lot of suffering we don't want. Okay, so that's why we end up talking about what is deep down, the grasping at selves, how that produces all forms of delusions, and that influences us to create actions, and then how we perpetuate our whole way of doing things, and we are stuck in samsara. Otherwise, there's many other phenomena, right? I mean, whether or not this building is a result of cause and effect, that's really not going to affect that much in a sense, But what it is like our own grasping at the self, that is what is keeping us in samsara, not so much grasping at the sort of intrinsic reality of this building, so to speak, or some other phenomena. Any other questions? Go ahead.
So the grasping at the self, which is at the bottom of everything, produces then subsequently attachment to the self. And this attachment to the self causes us to protect or perpetuate the existence of the self.
Right.
Okay, that's the way it is.
Yes. Yes.
The difference is to accumulate a lot of merits and wisdom. But for the path of seeing, how do they eliminate the obscuration to omniscience?
Okay, sure. Tagi gen di kanam roba ta rangye nyeran ta ene chanju samba ki tongyi to be chale chi chi jan res la roba ge ta mara be ka wa cheba so chanju samba de ge ene cho ja chamba san de roba ge semjing ge de se san 아니 뉴집 주고 말이 시리 방교스 라브로와게 제도가 디탄도 모란라 세브르스 마존사 로와게 페나 차샤비나 전주 셈베 통람라 요겐데 로와게 통람 디기 아니 시리 비니보 간데 치그레스 로와게 아 베다 가자 베는 야랑 통람을 요로와게 통람 바르제 멜람게 타 통람 방자데 마시 치고 마치 라브로와게 다디게 추구메 로와게 페나 전주 셈베 통람이 베 전주 셈바 디기 통람 바제 멜람 디기 시리 빌리아 아니 시지 파 메브스야 가리키 겐치고 얼스 그서게
알레 this year 전주 선박에 니
전주 선박에 통람을 예배 전주 선박 요구 통람 되더라 와게 얘랑 요구 통람이보다 개발 국으로 와게 지기 시리로 님을 지기로 맞아죠 와게
어디지 와 드디어 다 전주 선박이 소론데 타고 이제 심지 타요도 사이 타야신 전주 선박 개요로 이 퍼지 돌라고 와 니랑 소론데 타고 소 타바도 등에데 코알 죄지하고 삼어도 그 차이도 송어요 봐 어디서 근데 그 자기 성에는 그 람냠스네야데 슝구로와 이 슝는 그 타바자 뭐 이제 이 야사에 줄도 말이스
알 통람기 때문에 달게
통내가 쏟다고 통람지다 알아야 가서도 뭐 이거 서예 공부터 삼로요 말아
알 삼로 자천보다 다 친구 냠내
자신도 다 삼로 자신 거도
So in the case of say Shravakas and Patika Buddhas, let's say they are on the path of seeing, which means they realize emptiness directly. Yeah. So their whole interest is like a self-liberation, right? I don't want to suffer anymore. I want out of samsara, and they're following the path sincerely. And this realization of emptiness is targeted only to counteract their grasping at self and get out of samsara. There's no other agenda here, right? That's it. In the case of bodhisattvas, when they're on the path of seeing, that's not just for the self-liberation, but more for the liberation of the whole, for the enlightenment of all beings. So when they are on the path of seeing, they engage in 6 perfections, right? Right from the beginning, their motivation is bodhicitta. So that requires for them to engage in the 6 perfections that accumulates a lot of merit, right? That's combined with the path of seeing, and that's for their path of seeing, is not just the realization of emptiness alone, but it's also facilitated by bodhicitta and other thoughts, and that's how accumulating a lot of merit and so counteracting cognitive obscuration.
Geshe said that on the path of seeing, they're performing action.
6 perfections.
6 perfect. But isn't the path of seeing only one meditation? It's just one moment, and it's over. How could they be performing the 6 perfection?
Right. Again, this one we 전주 선바 통람로 여베인 again. that 님도 친구 냠len 뒤슬라고 again. 저 통람 세대 코란지 코라 삼발이야 again. 아주 이 데로 again. 깨지 마세요. 다 로하게. 뒤저 거는 직 tun두지 말을 베스로 하게. 통람은 딱히 뒤 찍으면서 계속 방에 다 성당 그러긴 도게. 통람랑 아주 뒤로 하게. 냠사 20 대대 놓고 찍나 대대로 하게. 통람. 전주 선바 통람을 유도 가라스. 아니 친구 냠len 가르치고 그 뒤저도 마선 찍으러 하게. 냠len 찍으면서 요마로 와. 친구 냠len 가르치고 레사게. 당에 선바 통람 냠사 20대 죽으면 됐은 거다로 하게.
这个娘把下的从这个新竹现在娘们要东西就到不娘们要嘛是吧？你可就在那新竹娘们这个套子看东西我到嘛，我的从你的空呢，你头的那通套是吧？现在的在我是的情况嘛，新竹个娘们情况。
对对了，那东西多久个了？让到达满大去那可以。
到达满大要了，东西。
都是切了起面。
到我的比女性切啊，到岛上都带着要嘛，那可以。别那。这是个么来着？俺这俺那这少生个，刚刚去过这个，咱们这时候的，现在我懂得是来了这新路的，这个空路千万小问题，我这这这个推荐下呢，就要来的。
啊，从那年前一些搞了的的要么的呢，当然。통람 뒤로 가게 파제
근데 연놈을 값을 소유로 와요 봐. 근데 보통 그냥 봐야 얘네 공 돈이 무슨 통마 또로 봐. 근데 뒤에 간거 신루게 되신다. 개바 처음에 닝 소사사로.
더 통람 단데 냠상 이신 야 당선은 양 통람 내가서 양 친구를 냠는 거 쉬워.
요 지절래도 열심히 해.
Just want to make clear for you so that I get a clear response. In the case of bodhisattvas on the path of seeing, darshan mark, right? The darshan mark has different aspects. While they are in the meditative equipoise on emptiness, right, the only thing that's explicitly focused on is emptiness, so they cannot engage in generosity, other things. But from the beginning, when they enter into that state, the whole motivation was bodhicitta, was facilitated by other perfections. Now, once they're out of that state, right, they still could be on the path of seeing, so then they can engage in other perfections. So the path of seeing has different aspects, right? You are in the meditative state or you are post-meditational period, right? So in the post-meditational period, so they could literally engage in other perfections. But while in the meditative state, they can't do generosity, other things, But before they enter into that, it was powered by. Right. That's right. Yes. Yeah. Right. It's not over. So again, tongbanye to what samgi tanda karaso gore tonglam di soba keje marwas again.
La.
Tongbanye to what samgi, nus to what samgi tonglam ki nega soba keje marwasa.
Mare. Tanda te ta tongbanye to na se tongbanye to ta mo tongbanye riwe te ba samsung gomju se. Tine gom hila sungri gom ne yongjo gom ne to yongso to ora ta imo tono ke derwa
la ngosum to ba kije tangbo den ta tholam gochu bo나 마도 tholam 좋아요 말와
la
동이 ngosum de tangbo to ora ge kije tangbo de kal도 다 tholam sar도 to bo나 마도 제 tholam 좋아요 말와다 tholam 내가 좋아요
통도 좋아요 말에 통음다 냠샤 지도 니여라
거니가 도 Yeah, what happens is when we come from the path of accumulation, preparation, all of those things, the first moment you realize emptiness non-conceptually, that's where the path of seeing starts. It doesn't mean it ended with that moment, because it has those aspects, the meditative state and post-meditation period. Yeah, like this. Yes.
Thank you. So I guess I still have some questions about kind of cognitive obscurations,
Yeah.
obscuration of knowledge. So it seems like we're saying that with regard to cyclic existence and emotional obscurations, that the ignorance of the selflessness of a person as well as phenomena are required to extinguish that from the prasangika perspective, and that
Yeah.
those two things are equal.
Yes.
So then I was wondering if we could kind of clarify then with regards to the obscuration of knowledge, what else would be left, like the habits of ignorance, if we're equating them and saying, well, the target is the same,
Okay.
but then how are they different?
Sure. Quran dice again the session arona sata dagi di rowa again. Anju nyaran dige di ta chanju sem tongyi to wat kheba yo mare so ba. Nyaran gi ta nyundip chugo pa ma de shidip nyeb ding yo mare wa ge. Jedu kan ya ta dagi nganju khobe na ye de ya tangjin sena ke 가사 그 당제의 최고 당진이 여러 와게 디 자와전 유모 칸가 게 인고래 지 안취미 이제 먹고 숨 벌어 와게 다 디니라 loss and 빵을 하대 그러 와게 시집 생인데 가를 하대 여러서 와게 또 공시를 하대 가를 해서 다디 년랑이 빵 모두 이제 전주선 빵으로 시집 여러 와게
됐어요다 됐어요도 가서 시집해야 돼 지당 됐어요다 니만 니모 줄배 토마마 공대 코나데 요 말데
공시르지
코나 공시 소리 다도 거기 락치도 때 내디고 그랬어 어디 본 거지 나 그거 됐어도 가서 배나 됐어다 종도 고바도 되지 너지 제로서는 애니 대 유를 뭐르샤 애니 가서 고바 보라 동자 지금 매우 통하면 너지 나는 고바 tema 가야 봐 어디 나기다 남의 매도서 들배 뭐도 어디시 거기 종으로지 하더다 배는다 도스라는 배 야가도 시는 도스라는 디메로 배는 연서 내가 도자 지금 힘은 나딩이 시에서는 거 샹주로지 나사포라 타선 또지 따다래서는 거다도 샤감보다 좁아셔요. 어디 나사디 흉이 서와. 어디서들 지금 그런 흉하다. 어디 본 거래시.
Cognitive obscurations or the obscuration to omniscience, shidib in Tibetan. Yes, in a sense, we might be able to use the word habit with that. When we have, habituated with the afflicted emotions or delusions, even though the actual delusions are gotten rid of, the habit is still left over something. It's just like the impact of the delusions, And oftentimes the examples we use is like, if you put, garlic or onion in a container, once you have taken them out, still the garlic smell is there. Still there's something, garlicness is there, or the onion is there, right? Or maybe the better example would be like, somebody who really goes to the surgery, and the surgery has been successful, and the person is back to life, but then there's something about the person. He is not 100% himself, right? We congratulate, wow, great, you look exactly the same. Not really. There's something the person is lacking, like something weakness somewhere, right? So it's that kind of thing. The cognitive obscuration is to do with the impact of the afflicted emotions. That's very subtle. That still needs to be purified. Yeah.
So it's that bodhicitta motivation that would push one to rid oneself of those habits, whereas protected Buddhas, etc., they lack that motivation.
The days the jadan janda di ta kaso kore shidi yor wage ta nyumo gi kaso nyuba senemi du phagja senemi du komshi sendi mab soyala ta changju sem gero wage nyuba di da di mab sotu gor was
어디 다 쪼도 changju sem che 다 대로 봐 7년에 8년에 차고로 와 어디 손이 용서 거면 대방토 말어 와 어디 쪼도 changju sem che
Yeah, the primary factor here is the bodhicitta, but then all the 6 perfections must be fulfilled, Yeah. Okay.
Thank you so much for Geshe teaching as always. I enjoy very much. And my question is, when Geshe talking about accumulate merit in the path of seeing, and when Bodhisattva realize the path of seeing, and they perform or they practice the 6 perfection, and then the result of that is the Bodhisattva have both accumulate merit and accumulate wisdom. And is it accumulate merit? Bring the result of accumulate merit is the form kaya, isn't it? And then the result of wisdom, merit of wisdom, the dharma kaya, isn't it?
Kengi lungzhe di Quran penpo shibshu tochen shiro nasa gen. Jama ki kendi shue di sa tata ki kendi ka namro wa chanju sembe ki nyamle nali ya tapena tonglam ki neka ba yinba yin ro wa ge. Ani ji da chindu ki nyamle ro wa ge. Nang je cho shibshi ja chimba sa ge yebe song sang da chongni sa ye ge chimba cha ro wa ge. Sesa sonam ki cho ne sa ni di pa taru shue di ga di ki chele de lo ge. And sugu top there, the Cherwage. And Yesheki saw the sort of the Galadi, Chugu top at the says the Sanjus number Chugu, the Sugu top there, the Sony Rovage. Tarsens the dig Tunde Chadu was again. That's right, yes, exactly. That Bodhisattvas, unlike Shervakas and particular Buddhas, they engage in the fulfillment of the two types of accumulation, merit, and wisdom, while they're on the path from the preparation to the normal learning. And so even on the path of seeing at different phases, they still continue with the merit accumulation. And when they fulfill the merit accumulation, they achieve the enlightened form body, Rupakaya. When they complete the accumulation of the wisdom, so they achieve the Dharmakaya, the truth body. Okay, so those are the, yes, you're right. So we'll stop there today, Desha Chochki. Kange lode, Timye, Dende, Ninda, Namda, Rapseve, Chinye, Dungu, Jishin, Sije, Nye, Tuwa, Lebamze, Kanda, Sebe, Zara, Mindon, Dungue, Jeseve, Dozo, Kunla, Poje, Tatse, Yanla, Joje, Yan. Joda, Chero, Nyumo, Nilo, Deje, Chato, Treze, Mare, Muse, Dungue, Nyugo, Chinye, Jose, Dene daje saju daze yunde lunzo yeze tuwe gu chura talu menzen jambe yangla ndu omara badana Omara bazana de zende kye yenra veze ye dalu demo memba rasene kada denje shunglo lode bove nawan zendo se lode yaze udong pega de gezan pongve judong memba shen tenba zengla wando yicho chanyen shogun chola so wan. Obeisance to my Guru and Protector Manjushri, who holds at his heart a scriptural text, symbolic of his seeing all things as they are, whose intelligence shines forth as the sun, unclouded by delusions or traces of ignorance, who teaches in 60 ways with the loving compassion of Father for its only Son, all creatures caught in the prison of samsara, confused in the darkness of their ignorance, overwhelmed by their suffering. You whose dragon thunder-like proclamation of Dharma arouses us from the stupor of our delusions and free us from the iron chains of our karma, who wields this sword of wisdom, hewing down suffering wherever sprouts appear, clearing away the darkness of ignorance. You have been pure from the beginning, who have completed the stages, achieving the highest perfection of a bodhisattva, whose princely body is adorned with 112 marks of a Buddha. I bow down to you, Manjushri, Om Arabaza Nadi. O compassionate one, with the brilliance of your wisdom, illuminate the darkness enclosing my mind, enlighten my intelligence and wisdom, so that I may gain insight into Buddha's words and the texts that explain them. Like the sweet perfume of white lotus, born in the ocean of knowledge, nourishing honeybees, the fortunate being, your fame pervades all directions. You are proficient and powerful in upholding the precious doctrine. To you, O Lobsang Tenzin Wangda, respectfully I pray.
Đợi, bậc đại trí, Ngài điều phục hai chướng ngại, tựa nhật quan lan tỏa khắp mười phương, bậc thực chứng chân nghĩa màu rốt ráo, từ tim Ngài Bát Nhã Kinh thủ hộ nhiệm màu, cõi luân hồi chúng sanh thọ nghiệp báo, bị ngăn che bởi phiền não vô minh, sở hữu 60 pháp âm thủ thắng, cùng đại bi Ngài hóa độ chúng sanh, tự từ mẫu chăm lo cho quý tử. Tiếng rồng vang Ngài thức tỉnh hữu tình, thoát khỏi vòng luân hồi nghiệp báo. Gươm trí huệ Ngài gạt tích vô minh, tận diệt muôn vàn khổ đau cùng ách nạn. Trường tử Như Lai tối thắng toàn giác, Ngài an trụ nơi thập địa pháp vân, báu thanh Ngài trang nghiêm thanh tịnh. Đê đầu đảnh lễ Đức Văn Thù Sư Lợi, cúi xin Ngài tận diệt ám chướng vô minh. Om Arapasanadi. Con khẩn cầu dưới gót sen bậc đại trí, bàn pháp lực diệt phiền não vô minh. Được trí sáng con thâm nhập nghĩa màu, pháp vi diệu cùng muôn vàn luận giải. Như diệu hương ngọt ngào từ sen trắng, đàn xanh như trí thù thắng đại dương. Hàng thiện căn như ong mật thọ nương, hồng danh Ngài khắp mười phương quảng bá. Đấng thiện xảo uy dũng bảo tồn pháp bảo vô giá. Nam mô Lốp Giang Tên Duyên Quang Đắc, xin cung kính trì niệm.
chanju senjo rinpo che ma ye ba na ye ju je ye wa nyam ba me ba yang ko ne ko pe wa ju to ni da wa rinpo che ma ye ba na ye ye wa nyam ba me ba yang ko ne ko do be wa ju sa ji be ji ju ji me do zhang ri ra li ji ni de yin sa jie jin do mi de wi wa ye zhu che wo yu kan de ra we guo we xin gang de ben dang de wa ma lu zhong we ne 前日子王天津要做也下月时的不天君节一当古主让那满天那个你要